Right, for their analysis on the ongoing COVID situation in Sydney and the emerging situation here in Melbourne, I'm joined from the Gold Coast by the host of The Front Page, Peter Gleeson, and from Sydney, the host of Chris Smith Tonight. Chris Smith, before we get into all of this stuff, Gleeson, I know many of my viewers want me to send to you their deepest condolences on the tragic loss of your much-loved brother and say how pleased I am to see you back on air tonight. And I have to say, it was a beautiful piece you wrote on Sunday in the Courier Mail. A gutsy thing to do, I know, to go public with your grief, but it was a magnificent tribute to your brother and your best mate. Thank you, Gleeson. Terrific work.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know Chris echoes all of that sentiment as well. All right, let's get into all of this COVID stuff because it's big news out of Sydney today. You saw it in the package. Talk of meetings all day in Melbourne, talk of restrictions heading Melbourne's way as well. I'll start with you, Chris. A lot of anger from Western Sydney, southwestern Sydney residents, particularly those in the local government area of Fairfield. I know you're pretty familiar with that area. Required to get tested by law every 72 hours. A lot of complaints from people that there hasn't been enough manpower at the testing sites. Some people are saying they're waiting up to 4 hours. Pretty tough.
You're not wrong. Like, you can't bring in a rule like that without scaring a population of people in a local government area and motivate them to go and do what you tell them to do, which is to go and get a test. I got calls from old mates of mine from Fairfield last night. They were waiting 4 hours to get anywhere near the showground. And then this morning, I had workers who had to start at 6:30 thinking, oh, it'll be OK, we'll get there at 3:30 in the morning. They had to leave at 6 o'clock to make it to work, and they left without even getting a test. Like, it was just farcical. You've got places like Fairfield Park, King Park and other areas in that local government area that could have dealt with this onslaught. And look, today, to Dominic Perrottet's credit, he said sorry on behalf of the state government. Where was the sorry to the 200,000 people in the local government area of Fairfield from the Premier today? Is it such a hard word to say, is it?
Well, this is the same issue in Victoria. All these requirements, they make the government announcement, put up a hotline number, let's say, for bookings for COVID vaccinations. But they don't have the infrastructure in place. They don't have people there to answer the phones. They don't have enough phone lines. They haven't, despite months, got the online booking system done. It's like the head's ahead of the mouth, or the mouth's ahead of the head, or nothing's working. I don't know what the phrase is there, Gleeson. It's just a cluster, really. It's just a bad set of decisions, and the bureaucracy's running from the get-go behind the politicians. 2 weeks extension here in Sydney to the Greater Sydney area. The Premier's facing calls from epidemiologists who say that she's got to put in tougher restrictions. Professor Tony Blakely is one of those today. But I don't know how she makes them any tougher, do you?
Well, I don't think she can. I mean, at the end of the day, we are in the midst of a pandemic. It's escalating. This Delta variant is the one that is particularly virulent, and it's the one that they're particularly scared of. But you just mentioned Victoria, Peter, and I've got to say, I saw Andrews and Martin Pakula come out today, and they were very critical of the way in which the Commonwealth has backed New South Wales and suggesting that Victoria had been given a raw deal. I mean, that's an absolute scandal, the way in which they have crushed so many retailers, so many small businesses in Victoria with their own stupid decisions, particularly around hotel quarantine. And here they are, the good old trick from these Labor state governments, Queensland, WA, Victoria, when in doubt, blame Canberra. And I'll tell you what, your opening editorial was so spot on tonight. When this is all done and dusted, there will be another pandemic. We need a Royal Commission into why the states have politicised this so badly, and the people who are suffering as a result of this is the Australian public.
Look, you're spot on about this growing barney between Canberra and the Victorian government. Extra cases here today, as I said, the first in a long time in Victoria. One of the exposure sites, a real concern, is the MCG. An affected man went along to the big match between Carlton and Geelong, crowd of 30,000. So that's the concern, that it'll be bigger in terms of COVID infections tomorrow. But interestingly, Chris Smith, we saw in the package there Martin Pakula, the Jobs Minister in Victoria, complaining that they had to, bang hard on the table for Victoria to get any money. Josh Frydenberg confirmed that the same offer that New South Wales accepted was put to Victoria, but Victoria rejected that offer. And if you look at the expenditure, $13 billion has gone to Victoria for JobSeeker and JobKeeper and all the other payments out of Canberra. But basically, no other state per capita has already got the support of Victoria. They had the same deal, Chris. They knocked it back and now they're complaining.
Yeah, it sounds like a green strategy. Well, it's not good enough. It's not up to our standards, so we won't have anything. Thank you very much. Look, if blind Freddie can see the difference between the two scenarios here. What we're talking about is what happens when, under this particular regime, that is no JobKeeper, you extend beyond the 2-week lockdown period. That's what this is for, and that will go to Victorians if they get there next month. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I almost scared you, I know, I'm sorry. But this is what it's about. There's a big difference between that and what you give a state for the second week of a lockdown. And the motivation on behalf of the feds is very simple. You can't start having big amounts of money being offered to states and territories for first or second week lockdowns because they'll lock down at the mere mention of a sneeze in another state. You can't have that. And so you've got to appease those that demand help, but at the same time you've got to make sure you disincentivise the lockdown knee-jerk reactors who would lock down at the mere mention of COVID.
All right, a couple of things I want to get to before we go. Explain this one for me, Glee. So a bloke plays 70 tests for the Wallabies, but he keeps getting knocked back for Australian citizenship. This is Quade Cooper, as you know, Kiwi-born playmaker, lived in Australia since he was 17. He's asked to be an Australian citizen. He's put the forms in, but the Department of Home Affairs has knocked him back. I can't make sense of this.
Maybe they saw a couple of replays of his defensive lapses in games for the Wallabies. He's a sparkling offensive player. He's a try-scoring machine, magnificent offensive player, Peter, but his defence has often been questioned. But in all seriousness, what a joke. The guy puts his body on the line for 70 games for the Wallabies. Yes, he was born in New Zealand, but we know a lot of New Zealanders who emigrate to Australia and take out citizenship, as they should. But I find this, it's the most, emphasised bureaucracy. What was the term they used? That he hadn't properly contributed to Australian society. As I said, they've probably seen a few of his defensive lapses. Yeah, go figure.
Go figure. Go figure. Well, here's one for you, Chris. This is just as extraordinary. That the periodic table, which everyone who's done science will understand, they're talking about wiping that from the chemistry curriculum in Victoria. They want to replace the periodic table with a whole lot of lessons for high school students in Victoria, teaching so-called green chemistry principles, recycling, all of that sort of stuff. Now, every day I get out of bed and I think I can't get any more crazier on this sort of stuff, yet it does. If you're a student today, how on earth can you pass science and not know about the periodic table?
Oh, this is a classic. I thought New South Wales dominated when it came to dysfunctional educational philosophies. But no. Victoria is there and very competitive in this field. Like, at the end of the day, here we are trying at a federal level to try and make it more uniform, the curriculum, and maybe even make our curriculum a little bit more in sync with curriculums in Europe and the UK and the United States. This is the main game plan, because then employers know who they're getting and what the chance is of them getting a good employee. And employees get a better chance of getting a job both here and if they wanted to travel overseas. But no. Not in Victoria. You've got to make sure the green ideology seeps in somewhere. Give me a break. This is Science 101, the periodic table. Just trash it.
I'll tell you what, it's like trying to learn to read without learning the alphabet. Peter Gleeson, Chris Smith, goodness me, God spare us.
I flunked chemistry, so I'm glad you didn't ask me that.
I'm not silly. Great to have you back, Gleeson.